You just got paid. For about 6 hours, you feel invincible. Then you open an app. Then you buy something you didn't need. Then, a week later, you wonder where the money went. You call this a lack of discipline, but the real answer is far stranger. Your brain was never built to save money. It was built to survive winters that no longer exist. Think about that for a second. Money is new. Coins are about 3,000 years old. Paper money is younger still. But your brain is old. Very old. It was shaped over hundreds of thousands of years in a world with no banks, no salaries, and no future to plan for beyond the next storm. So when you try to save for retirement using a brain built for the savannah, something breaks. Not because you're weak, because the software doesn't match the hardware. Let's go back. 200,000 years ago, on the plains of East Africa, a human ancestor finds a beehive dripping with honey. What does she do? She doesn't ration it. She doesn't set some aside for next month. She eats it. All of it. Right now. Because tomorrow, a lion might eat her instead. Because that honey will spoil in the heat within days. Because there is no vault, no bank, no pension fund waiting on the other side of patience. In that world, saving wasn't virtuous. It was often fatal. Resources rotted, got stolen, or were eaten by someone stronger. The smart move, biologically speaking, was to consume value the moment you had it. This is the part most people miss. Evolution doesn't reward patience. It rewards whatever kept your ancestors alive long enough to have children. And for nearly all of human history, that meant grabbing resources immediately, because immediate was the only guarantee you'd ever get. Now fast forward. You are sitting in a bright room with a screen in your hand. A notification says, "Flash sale, 40% off, ends in 2 hours." Your heart does something strange. It quickens. Not because you need the item, because your ancient brain has just detected scarcity. And scarcity, for 200,000 years, meant act now or lose it forever. This isn't a metaphor, it's neuroscience. In the 1990s, economist George Ainsley described something called hyperbolic discounting. In simple terms, it means humans consistently value a smaller reward now over a much larger reward later, and the closer that now gets, the more irrationally powerful it becomes. Offer someone $100 today or $110 in a month, and many people take the 100 today. Not because the math makes sense, because the pull of now activates something older and louder than logic. Ainsley wasn't describing weak-willed people. He was describing all people. The pull he measured shows up the same way in pigeons, rats, and humans, which tells you something important. This isn't a character flaw, it's a design feature left over from an environment that no longer exists. Here's where it gets more interesting. In the late 1960s, a psychologist named Walter Mischel ran an experiment at Stanford with children and marshmallows. A child was left alone with one marshmallow and a promise. Wait 15 minutes without eating it, and you'll get 2 instead of 1. Some children waited. Many didn't. For decades, people used this study to sort children into disciplined and undisciplined. But later research complicated that story. Children from unstable environments where promises were sometimes broken and resources sometimes disappeared were less likely to wait. Not because they lacked willpower, because their environment had taught them, correctly, that waiting is only smart when the future is reliable. Do you see the pattern forming? Ancient humans lived in an unreliable world. Waiting rarely paid off. Grabbing did. That instinct didn't vanish when farming appeared, or when cities rose, or when currency was invented. It simply went looking for new triggers. And modern commerce, whether it knows it or not, has become extremely good at pulling that trigger. Every limited-time offer is speaking directly to a part of your brain shaped by spoiling meat and hungry lions. Every "only 3 left in stock" message is whispering the oldest warning your ancestors ever knew. If you don't take it now, it's gone. You are not weak for feeling that pull. You are, biologically, exactly on schedule. There's a second layer to this, and it's just as old. In 1979, psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky published research on something called loss aversion. Their finding, now among the most replicated in behavioral science, was simple but strange. Losing $100 feels roughly twice as painful as gaining $100 feels good. Your brain doesn't weigh gains and losses equally. It weighs losses far more heavily. Why would evolution build a brain like that? Picture an ancestor deciding whether to cross unfamiliar territory for more food when the food she already has is enough to survive the week. A gain might mean a slightly better week. A loss might mean death if the new territory holds a predator instead of food. In a world where losses could be fatal and gains were rarely life-changing, a brain wired to fear loss more than it desires gain wasn't broken. It was exactly the brain that kept her alive. Bring that same wiring into a modern grocery store, and it stops protecting you from lions and starts protecting you from nothing in particular. It just fires anyway. That's why watching your savings account shrink by $200 feels unbearable, while watching it grow by $200 barely registers. Same number, opposite emotional weight. Your ancestors' fear of loss is still running in the background of your banking app. So what happens when you combine these two ancient systems? A brain that overvalues right now, and a brain that fears loss more than it desires gain. You get a modern human standing in front of a screen, feeling an almost physical urge to spend immediately, while feeling almost nothing about the slow, invisible loss of not saving. Spending feels like gaining something today. Not spending feels like nothing at all, because a future loss, decades away, doesn't trigger the same ancient alarm that an immediate one does. This is the real reason budgeting apps and financial advice so often fail. They're built on the assumption that if you just see the numbers clearly, you'll behave rationally. But the part of your brain doing the deciding in the moment of temptation isn't reading a spreadsheet. It's running code written for a world with no spreadsheets at all. Here's the twist, though, and it changes how you might think about all of this. This ancient wiring wasn't a flaw to be engineered around. It was, for nearly all of human history, the single smartest strategy available. The humans who hesitated, who tried to save honey for next month in a world with no refrigeration, often died with full storerooms and no descendants. The humans who consumed resources immediately, who reacted strongly to scarcity, who feared loss above all else, survived long enough to pass that exact wiring on to you. You are not carrying a broken brain. You are carrying the winning strategy from a 200,000-year contest. It just happens to be running in an environment it was never designed for. So what do you do with that? You stop treating every impulse purchase as a personal failure and start treating it as an ancient alarm going off in a building it doesn't recognize. Some people quietly outsource the decision. Automatic transfers into savings made the moment a paycheck lands before that ancient grab-it-now system even gets a vote. Not because willpower increased, because the moment of temptation was removed entirely. Others rename the fight. Instead of trying to out-argue an instinct built over hundreds of thousands of years, they simply make saving the default and spending the thing that requires an extra step. None of this means you're destined to struggle forever. It means the struggle was never really about discipline in the first place. It was about two ancient systems, tuned perfectly for a world of lions and spoiling honey, still running quietly underneath every purchase you make. Understanding that doesn't hand you a solution, but it hands you something almost as valuable. It hands you a reason to stop blaming yourself for losing a fight your ancestors were never meant to win against a world like this one. Tonight, when you open that app again and feel that same familiar pull, remember what you're actually feeling. It isn't weakness. It's 200,000 years of survival, still trying to keep you alive in a world that stopped needing it to.